Hello, fellow rosarians. Thank you for joining me today. Many of you have asked for a video on how to do drip irrigation, and I have drip irrigation in a couple of the beds just to make my life so much easier. During the heat of the summer, sometimes I really only want to run outside for 10 minutes to take a quick look at the plants and then be back inside. I don't want to spend my time watering everything. So this would be a great solution for you if you have either a pier, if you have a very windy deck, if you have stairs that you want to put pots on. I'm going to tell you how to secure those down, and securing them down will help to give you that confidence that they're not going to fly off the pier, the deck, or the stairs if you have a child or a dog, or in your excitement, you're rushing down the stairs, that they're going to fall off. So let's talk about first the supplies that you're going to need, and I'll get into details in a few minutes. You're going to need 1/2-inch drip tubing, and I buy it in a really huge spool because I do a lot of projects and I want to make sure that I have enough. Easiest things to cut will be your tin snips. You're also going to get 1/4-inch distribution tubing, and this is what goes into the pots. The 1/2-inch is going to be your main water line. This is going to be going to each individual pot. Okay, I've got a timer in my hand. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm using 1/4-inch distribution that has holes every 6 inches to water into the pots. Landscape ties to hold down the distribution tubing. You're going to need a punch tool. A couple more things here. Got them in my pocket. You're going to need a barbed coupler, and the barbed coupler just fell in the water. The barbed coupler is what holds together the distribution tubing, the one that is coming off of the main line and the one that's going to coil into the inside of the pot. You're going to need that coupler. You're also going to need your emitters, and your emitter is what goes into that main water line that the distribution tube comes off of into the pot. I'm using 1 gallon per hour. They come in different sizes. And then finally, you're going to need an end cap to stop your soaker hose at the very end so that the water doesn't keep on going. All right, so now that we've talked about supplies, let's talk about how I prepped the pots. So I wanted to secure the pots to the pier, and so I asked my husband the best way to do it. And so we put 4 bolts into the bottom of the pot. We measured exactly where we wanted it on the edge of the pier. Bolts that we used were 3-inch long stainless steel bolts that are 1/4 inch in diameter, and then we also used washers and nuts to secure them to the pier. So after we had these secured to the pier, then I'm going to pop a picture up here. You'll see how I have, I took the distribution tubing and put it in place on the inside of the pot, and I had it go out through the bottom of that pot because it's got those holes in the bottom of it. So I put that through and put duct tape there just to hold it. After I put the tubing in all of the interior of the pots, then it was time to prepare them for the roses. So what did I use? I use potting soil that is organic because I don't want any nutrients added that I haven't added myself. So I use organic potting soil that has the perlite in it to give it a little bit of air so that it doesn't get too compacted with the rain hitting it. So once I added that and the rose, then I added the Darn Good Fertilizer by Great Big Plants. You're going to see up on the top of the screen that this is a promotion because they gave this to me to try, to share with you the results. So we're going to watch this season and see how it does. I shared with you last year how much I love Great Big Roses. I mean, it's a liquid fertilizer that has that humic acid and kelp in it, and it boosts whatever product you're using, the fish tone or the rose tone. It boosts it, and it allows the plant to get all of the nutrients that it needs from the soil that sometimes, for whatever reason, it can't grab out of the soil. It's just difficult. So the humic acid allows it to do that, and that's another awesome thing about this Darn Good Fertilizer is that it has the humic acid in it. The nutrients on this? 655. So that's the NPK number. And the NPK, we look at on all of our labels for the nitrogen, the potassium, the potash. And these are all things that help with root development, the green of the plant, its ability to bloom. And so you want to make sure that you're giving your plant a real gentle monthly application of what it needs. That's why I don't want to add anything in that potting soil, because I know that I'm going to be feeding it myself every month. So I added this, and I used, for new plantings, I put in a half a cup per pot, and I mix that with my rose tome. So on the month that I'm not using this, I'll be using the Great Big Roses with the rose tome. I want to show it to you really quick. This is what it looks like. It's very sandy. So now that I've told you about all the prep work, I want to show you how easy this is. Let's go ahead and get started. So for step one, I'm going to run the drip irrigation down the length that I need, and I'll be back in a second. So now that I run it down the length of the pier, I now have enough tubing. It's time for step two. Step two, and I forgot to tell you, in your supply list, you need to have the backflow preventer, and this is what screws on to the hose spigot. So before I screw it on, I want to show you how to add it to connect these. It's kind of a pain. This is probably one of the hardest things, trying to hold it up for you to see it. You're going to push this onto the end of the tubing. It takes a little bit of strength. And then after you put it on, this piece here is going to screw down on top of it and clamp it in place. So easy peasy. We're going to go ahead and plug this in, and step three is we're going to walk down the pier and make sure that I've got water coming through. If I don't have water coming through, check the line, make sure that there are no kinks, but you should have water flowing all the way through. So I came all the way to the end of the pier to make sure that I've got water, and I do. So that's a great success that we've made it that far. Here's the next step. So what you do is you take your clip, put it on the end. You're going to clamp this over with your hand, and this stops the water and gives you a stopping point so that the water is going through, but it's not going further. That's one step further. So now we're ready for the final steps. Follow me up to a pot. So you'll see I left my tubing out here, and I actually put the emitter on the connector on the bottom, but what I'm going to do to show you is it typically comes with a punching tool. And when you put in your pierced portion to allow the water to go through, all you need to do is place it on a surface, and it allows you to punch through. Very easy. And look, do you see the water's already coming out right now? I'm actually going to take this one off, and then all you need to do is push this onto. So once I push it onto the emitter now, it's going to come through here. Do you see water's already dripping through? And I could put an emitter on this and just put it near the base of the plant, but what I want to show you that I'd like to do real quick is I have a perforated hose, and so it has little tiny holes throughout the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is cut a portion of this to loop around it, and do you see there's little tiny holes through the whole thing, kind of like a soaker. So I'm going to take this and put it onto this end emitter. I've got a connector here for the two. So if I put this on here now, you'll see here in a second, all of the water is going to start coming through here. Yep, there we go. See, it's coming through the end, and it's going to start, I've got water coming through all of these holes now. And I'm just going to loop this around the end, the whole rose bush like this, and then I have a landscape tie to hold it in place. And this is a little end cap now that goes on the very end of this soaker to stop the water from coming out of the bottom so that it forces it through just the strip line. And now these will be watering themselves. I hope this gives you the confidence that you can do this yourself. The only thing that I'll add is that I'm putting a timer on mine, and I'll pop it up here for you. Mine are on a dusk to dawn timer, and so every day, as soon as the sun comes on, it turns itself on and waters for a set period of time. I'm going to have to play with that watering to decide how long I want it to go. I'll probably start with a half hour and see how that does, but it's just something that you're going to have to check for your environment to see how much water it requires. So wasn't that easy? I mean, you have to have a little bit of hand strength to be able to couple on the hose, to pierce through the tubing, but other than that, it's such a feeling of accomplishment when you do it yourself and you know that you're doing something to make your life easier this season. So I hope this video is helpful. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, because we're going to be checking in on these pots for the season to see how they do with the Great Big Plants products. I'm going to be using that darn good compost, and I'm going to be using Great Big Roses down here. So thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.